Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Bolt City Podcast. Dave Palet, Josh Palet, Mario Heron. And we're going to start the show right off the bat. Of course, Fernando Ramirez, our good friend from the Sporting Tribune, joins us talking Charger football with you. Fernando, here we are. We're 4 games in. This team is 2-2. And I'll start with the record. Should this team be satisfied at 2-2, or should they be upset that they're 2-2?
They should be upset. They should be upset. I appreciate you guys for having me. I was texting with Josh, and I'm like, "Hey, when are you guys gonna have me in for after a victory? It's usually after losses, and you guys have me on." But there you go, Victory Tuesday, I guess. But yeah, no, they should be 4-0. I mean, it's just the game against Miami. They should have been a lot better. They should have done better against Miami. Miami, I know, is a top-notch team. Everybody thinks that they're really good, but the Chargers made some mistakes that kind of mess with them. I thought they got too conservative in that game. Too conservative against the Tennessee. They should have handled Tennessee, and they didn't. Conservative in that game. Against Minnesota, they were a little bit more willing to go for it. They won. They willing to go for it against the Raiders. They won. So I guess conservative is 0-2, and going for it is 2-0. So I know some people don't like the fourth down calls, but I was okay with them going for it, honestly. The play calling to me was just the bad part against the Vikings. The second one, the tush push, there was no pushing of the tush, and that's why I didn't think they got that. So, but they're 2-0 in that sense. So they sit here now at 2-2, which is better than 1-3 or 0-4. But yeah, they have a lot of work to do.
They have a lot of work to do, and we think the passing game could be better if the Chargers added another receiver through free agency, a guy like Jarvis Landry. To our demise, Chase Claypool has been thrown out there. Mario and I and Dave do not want Chase Claypool, but it sounds like it could be a possibility maybe. Have you heard anything about the Chargers adding on another receiver?
I'd be very surprised if it was Chase Claypool, just because of some of the off-the-field stuff. I mean, you're basically getting paid to not show up to work. Like, that's not a good case scenario there. And he's had issues in Pittsburgh. He had issues at Notre Dame. He's having issues now with Chicago. I mean, it's just not a good look. And I know Chicago's going through a lot of stuff right now, but this is just adding on to it. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if the Chargers brought somebody in like Chase Claypool. I know that Tom Telesco liked him before the draft, but I would just be very surprised if they brought him in, just because he doesn't seem like a guy that would fit this team in this roster. I mean, he has a skill set that's similar to Mike Williams, but just because of everything else, I'd be very surprised if they got him. But yeah, they're going to need some help, because the Raiders, what they did is they took away Keenan Allen. I know he scored the 1 touchdown, but he didn't have that big of an impact the way he had the week before with 215 yards. So yeah, they're going to need something else. They're going to need another receiver, something, or Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer to finally step up. But I mean, Quentin Johnson only played 51% of the snaps. I mean, they need to get him more integrated in this offense. And what he said, he told me that he learns trial by fire. Throw him in there, let him do some stuff, let him grow his relationship with Justin. I mean, him and the kid from Seattle, both of them haven't been integrated into their offenses. While Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, like, those guys are doing well for their teams. I mean, these guys just need I know they came into loaded receiving groups, but now Mike Williams isn't there. Now it's time to throw this kid in there and try and see what he's got.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about the Claypool.
Hi, Mario.
On. Hey, Fernando, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, man. We're going to talk Claypool further on, but yeah, he's similar to Mike Williams. He just doesn't catch the ball and doesn't show up when he's supposed to. So it's big differences between them. You mentioned Quentin Johnson. When do you kind of expect him to come along? Like, do you think there's going to be kind of like a breakout? I don't want to say game where he's just, 2 touchdowns and 10 receptions or whatever, but just a breakout in a sense of just becomes more involved in the offense, becomes a bigger part of the game plan. When do you kind of expect that to happen, or if it happens this year?
I think it will, but it's just going to take him and Justin Herbert time to kind of mesh well. That's why I'd be very surprised if a Chase Claypool got thrown in there, just because Herbert hasn't played with him. And with Herbert, it takes a little bit of time. I mean, Josh Palmer said it last year. He's like, it's taking me some time to get familiar with Justin, just because, or our connection to grow on the field, because you need to kind of grow it off the field. Like after practices, Josh Palmer's always there with him. But Quentin Johnson, if on that play where he caught that reception and they said that it was incomplete, then they figured out it was completed. That one, he was actually open almost right away. And if he would have caught the pass, he would have been gone for, I think, a 70-yard completion. So it's just about the trust that him and Herbert are going to build. Can they build that trust in season? Can they continue to build off of it? They didn't do a bad job during training camp. It's just that they had Quentin Johnson working more with the 2s and the 3s. He worked in with the 1s when like Mike didn't practice or they did a Veterans Day for Keenan. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time. But hey, the bye week came at the right time. This was your first game without Mike. You were able to win it. But coming out of this bye week, you're going to need to be playing at a higher level because you got Dallas right off the bat. That's going to be a tough game. And Dallas has a good defense and they play hard. So I think they go to Kansas City the week after that. And so it's going to be you're going to face some really good teams coming up and you're going to need all hands on deck. So I wouldn't be surprised if Quentin Johnson kind of broke out in that Cowboys game, but at the same time, it's going to be how his relationship is with Herbert. And that's going to be the interesting part about this whole thing because Justin, I mean, it's going to take some time, but I wouldn't be surprised if Quentin broke out because that dude is talented. He has a lot of talent.
Fernando, when you look at the quarterback situation with the Chargers, you have 2 guys who have thrown passes this year. You have, of course, Justin Herbert, who has a quarterback rating of 107. You have Keenan Allen with a perfect quarterback rating of 158.3. What are the chances Keenan Allen's the full-time quarterback? No, what I want to ask you is Justin Herbert, right now, not having Austin Eckler in the lineup, and of course, the threat that he is, how much does it hurt Justin Herbert's game?
I mean, I don't think it's hurt all that much just because Justin, I mean, he hadn't thrown a pick until on Sunday against the Raiders, and it cost him a little bit more than you would have hoped. I mean, his finger got jammed, I guess, in a helmet, and that's why his finger was all messed up after the game. I mean, it took him an hour after the game was over to speak to the media, and I mean, that usually isn't Justin. Justin usually goes, showers, gets ready, and then he speaks to the media, so that was a little bit interesting to see, but they said that the finger will be fine, that it'll continue to play, but I don't think it's I think what it's hurt is the running game. The running game has not been the same since Austin Eckler wasn't there. In the first game against Miami, they took full advantage of it, and they did a really good job against Miami running the football. It wasn't just him, it was Josh Kelly too, but ever since Austin Eckler hasn't played, the run game has been almost abysmal. It's been basically the same run game that it was before. So you kind of need Austin Eckler in there, and then the running back hasn't been a factor in the passing game. That's a real strong suit of Austin Eckler, and Justin likes having that security blanket. So once Austin Eckler comes back, and it seems like the Cowboy game might be a good chance for him to come back, it'll be a big opportunity for the Chargers offense to kind of maybe take off a little bit more, because once Austin's back, that's another weapon. If you notice, if you go back and look at some of these games, there were times where like linebackers would kind of look at Josh Kelly or Isaiah Spiller and be like, well, they're not really going to use them. The one time that they did, when they would get nervous is when Darius Davis was back there as the running back. Then they would be like, okay, let's watch this guy. But other times they kind of fall back a little bit just because they know that they're not the threats that Austin Eckler is for this offense. But it hasn't hurt Justin Herbert in the quarterback sense, but in the running back sense and in the security blanket, it does hurt not having Austin Eckler. So they are going to need him back this season. And I think what this is showing right now, though, is that the Chargers have a big decision to make in the offseason. Are you going to re-sign him, or are you going to let him hit free agency? Because you don't have a running back on this roster that can be the next Austin Eckler or can take the mantle hey, you know what? Yeah, we can let Austin walk, and this guy's going to be our next big time running back. They don't have that on this roster that's just my belief. But so it's going to be interesting to see moving forward how Austin performs and what they decide. I know it's only week 4 and I'm already talking off season, but still it's going to be a huge, these next few games are going to be huge for Austin to prove that he does deserve that top dollar that he is wanting.
Fernando, what would be your biggest takeaway for the defense so far in the season? Michael Davis has struggled big time the last few games, and J.C. Jackson, there's been a lot of drama around him being on the field and off the field. Would you assess the defense as improving? Do you think there's going to be a problem with the cornerback situation that we have? Thule's been playing great. How would you look at the defense as a whole?
As a whole, I mean, if I had to give it a letter grade, I'd give it a D plus. But I mean, they've saved the last 2 games for the Chargers. I know that the first 2 games they kind of gave it up, but these last 2 games, I mean, they haven't. The Kenneth Murray's interception, Asante Samuel Jr. With his interception, I mean, they've both been clutch, but they've given up some points. They made Aiden O'Connell at one point look pretty good. I mean, I know Khalil Mack had the 6 sacks, which is impressive no matter who you are. But at the same time, you do have to be nervous about the fact that a rookie quarterback came in here and he put up 238 against your offense. I know that, or your defense. I know 81 of those yards were Josh Jacobs, but still, I mean, you allowed this guy to throw for 238 or whatever, and he was actually at time, like on those final few drives, he was actually moving the ball up and down the field. So that's kind of the shaky part. Michael Davis he does not look good right now. I think Asante Samuel Jr. has made some plays. He made a lot of plays against the Vikings. I thought he made some good plays against the Raiders. But when you look at the style of play of the defense, just there's been some improvements. Like Kenneth Murray I thought he's kind of picked it up since the Miami game. I'm still not completely in there. Like, oh yeah, Kenneth Murray's completely changed. No, there's still some plays if you see where he comes in kind of like a battering ram and just throws himself and he doesn't make the tackle. So he's playing better than he has the last 2 years. But there's still some more that you want to see from him. But and then the J.C. Jackson stuff is just mind-boggling. I mean, I know Michael Davis came out and he wasn't happy after the Tennessee game when they were rotating. He's like, well, you can't get a feel for it. You start getting hot and then you come off and you're cold. But at the same time, I mean, what has he really done to solidify himself as a starter? I'm surprised they haven't given J.C. Jackson more of a go. J.C. told us last week, hey, I'm still getting healthy, but I've done everything that they've asked for. I don't understand why I don't have a place on this team. And it's not okay. You put anybody against Tyreek Hill, you're gonna get burned. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And the way that the Mike McDaniel decided to attack Staley's defense was impressive. It was crossing routes almost the whole game, and at the end, he decided to go long. And once they kind of got the crossing route thing settled, then he's like, oh, we're gonna go long with it. So it was very impressive what Mike McDaniel did, but it just for J.C. Jackson, I'm sure it's disheartening what's happening right now because you've done all this work. You've come back from an injury that not a lot of people can come back from. You still feel like you're at the top of your game. You still feel like you could do some stuff, and you're just not playing. So I don't know how that stuff ends out, but it does not. Because, I mean, last week we asked Staley, and he's like, there was communication the whole way there. If you don't like the result of what happened, that's on you. Basically saying, JC, that's on you, man. If you don't like it, that's how it is. It was communicated to you that's the way it's going to be. So that's the kind of confusing part about this whole thing. But you could tell JC is just not happy about the situation. And I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at it and he's like, man, I could play better than Michael Davis. Throw me out there and I bet you I could do some work. So yeah, I just don't know how that's going to be. But I wouldn't be surprised if JC kept on speaking week in and week out until he gets some playing time, that he's confused, that he doesn't understand why. But he has a leg to stand on. I mean, what's Michael Davis doing better than he is? Nothing. I mean, so I completely understand. Yeah. Exactly.
The doghouse.
Exactly. But yeah, the defense to me hasn't been impressive at all. And they've spent a lot of money on this defense and it just hasn't paid off. And then it hurt the not having Derwin, Joey, and all that. So, but they were able to withstand it. They were with their their fourth and fifth string safeties in there, and they were able to get the victory. And actually, Dean Marlowe and Raheem Lane actually didn't play all that bad. So I was kind of impressed by them. But yeah, you mentioned it. Thule's been fantastic. That kid, they really found a baller there. And I mean, you lost Uchenna Nwosu, and you were kind of like, okay, what are you going to replace him with? And now these guys have kind of stepped up. I mean, Uchenna's killing it up in Seattle. He had 2 sacks Monday night. So, but
I had 2 sacks.
This Thule kid
against the Giants. I had 2 sacks also.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
One. Yeah, I think everybody did. Everybody had a good game.
Yeah. 11 sacks. Oh my God, I couldn't believe Danny Pesos didn't do very well over there. So yeah, it's just all bad. But Did you see Brian Dable throwing the iPad? All
Yeah,
he was pissed.
So something about a team that sucks, but then sucking on prime time makes this suck 10 times worse because everyone's watching. You can't hide in the 1 o'clock slot and be like, all right, no one saw us get killed. It's like, no, it's public.
Ask the Broncos.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, the Bears are up this Thursday. I mean, that's gonna be public execution.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they got Bears Commanders, so get ready to not watch that one.
I mean, I'm interested to see what's his name?
Sam Howell.
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy's offense. I mean, except for 1 week, they've been pretty good all the other weeks. But yeah, this is gonna be a barn burner. To be honest, it's gonna be bad.
Speaking of offenses, Kellen Moore, obviously new OC. What kind of have you liked so far, seen from his just kind of standpoint, how things have changed from him to Lombardi? What have you liked so far from him in this offense?
I mean, I like the creativeness that he's kind of come in with, but I have my doubts about when it's the fourth quarter. I don't know. I have some question marks about the fourth quarter just because it kind of seems like in the Tennessee game, in the Dolphins game, towards the end, I didn't feel like they were as creative to kind of put those games away. Same thing in Minnesota. I know they won in Minnesota, but at the end of that game, you were kind of like, what's going on? Right before regulation, when they go down and they kick the field goal to tie and go into overtime against Tennessee, there was no creativity once they got into the red zone. Like and then you get into overtime, and the 3 plays that they decide to go with, Herbert clocked it twice, and the other one was incomplete. And you're kind of like, what was the play call? Like, what was going on here? So that's kind of been my worry, I guess. And then this week against the Raiders, it's like in the second half, they scored 24 points in the first half, and then in the second half, they didn't score any. And you're kind of like, well, why? Like, what's going? Like, I know you guys miss Mike, but it's next man up. I mean, you can't say, oh, well, Mike's not here. Well, dude, you're gonna have to still go out there and try and put up points. I mean, you're lucky Aiden O'Connell was the quarterback. If it was Jimmy Garoppolo, he might have tied that game up, and you might have lost that game. So they're kind of lucky, and then they're lucky in the sense that the Vikings just what did Kirk Cousins say, that it was too loud? And that's what threw them off at the end of that game in their own stadium. So they're lucky on that. They're lucky to not be 0-4 right now. But the fourth quarter, it's funny because I listen to the Dan Patrick Show. There used to be a guy on there. Well, he still comes on here and there. His name is Shane Irving. He's a fan, and he used to criticize Kellen Moore's fourth quarter offensive play calling. And then I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. But then I start watching and I'm like, ooh, yeah, like there's they lack creativity. So other than that, though, I thought he's done some good plays. Like the one where it looked like it was going to be a screen against Tennessee. It looked like it was going to be a screen to Mike, and Keenan looked like he was going to block for him. And then he took off and scored that wide open touchdown. Fantastic. There's been some other plays that you're like, okay, that's creative. Using Darius Davis in different ways, using him in motion, trying to confuse the defense. Great. You're doing a good job. But it's like late in games, it's kind of like you go away from all that stuff and you kind of outthink yourself. And I feel like that's kind of been hurting them in a sense. But I mean, I think he's done a good job. It's just late in games, you're going to have to be better, especially because of some of the teams that you're going to be facing pretty soon.
All right. Well, some of the teams are going to be facing pretty soon. For me, the Kellen Moore test is this Dallas Cowboys game. So this team has a bye week. We were talking about it after the game on Sunday. This is a perfect week for the Chargers for a bye week, not only for injuries, but a chance to kind of regroup as, you know, you're getting ready to face a big time opponent. Good news for the Chargers. The Cowboys this week face the Niners, national TV game Sunday night. All their focus is going to be on the Niners, and you know it's going to be a very physical game as the Niners are undefeated and there's a rivalry between those teams. They are not looking ahead to the Los Angeles Chargers. Kellen Moore was told you aren't good enough. They literally pointed the finger at him on you are the problem, and that's why we're letting you go. Kellen Moore's offense better be as good as we're ever going to see it against the Cowboys on what he designs, because if he doesn't have a hell of a scheme against the Cowboys, he's never going to have a hell of a scheme.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And you know what happened last time a team faced the Cowboys before the Chargers faced them was the Miami Dolphins last year. They faced the 49ers. Then they faced the Chargers, and they just looked like they were in disarray. So, but yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. I mean, he knows the Cowboys. There's no Trevon Diggs there. This could be the game where you kind of use you use Quentin Johnson, you try and use Josh Palmer, you try and use all the weapons that you have. Austin Eckler should be back. Your offensive line is a lot better than it has been in years. You have Rashawn Slater back. Him and Micah Parsons, that's going to be an interesting matchup. I can't wait to see that. But yeah, this should be the game. This should be the game that he takes that he should be able to call. He should be able to do a good job against. Now you have 2 weeks to prepare for the Cowboys, so you should come out and you should have a good game against them. But yeah, you're right. Mike McCarthy literally kicked. And remember, Jerry Jones always wanted Kellen Moore to be the future head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That's what he was grooming him for. That's what it was all about. And all of a sudden they let him go, and the Chargers picked him up. So yeah, this is a big test for Kellen Moore. Like you said, it's do or die kind of, because I know some fans are kind of shaky about the way this offense has been, but here's a big test for them. I mean, can you pass this test? Can you put up points consistently in all 4 quarters? This is going to be a big test. And then obviously no Mike Williams. So like you said, this came at a perfect time. They get the bye, you get to rest up, you get to pay attention, and you get to see how you can use guys that succeed. That's what separates a lot of these coaches. Can you put these weapons in a position for them each to be able to succeed? That's what I think is going to be. That's why Kellen's going to be under a microscope against this Cowboys game, because the way they were mentioning Taylor Swift on Sunday Night Football is going to be the way they're going to mention that Kellen Moore used to be a quarterback for them and used to be their quarterback's coach and then was their OC, and all of a sudden he became a Charger. So you can expect a lot of that, but the Chargers need to be prepared for what's coming, because Dallas, I'm just going to say Dallas is going to lose to the 49ers. They're going to come in pissed off, and they're going to want to, and let's not forget, LA is a big Cowboy. There's a lot of Cowboy fans here, so expect a lot of Cowboys fans at that game for sure. So the Chargers are going to have to do everything that they can to hold off the Cowboys, and 3-2 going into Kansas City. You need to stay close to Kansas City. So if you can be 3-2 heading into Kansas City, that'll be a big accomplishment, especially like I mentioned without Mike Williams. Man, that Mike Williams thing it hurts. It hurts for this team, because he is when they go on the road, that's who they look for. Mike Williams, go look at his stats. His home stats are good. His away stats are incredible. So yeah, they're definitely going to be missing him, but they have weapons. I mean, there's a reason why they went out and got Quentin Johnson and some of these guys. It's for moments like this for them to step up. So we'll see if they can do it.
Hope that's the case. Fernando, once again, thank you for your time. Of course, we're going to talk to you throughout the season, so we always appreciate you joining us. Again, we can't thank you enough, but that is Fernando Ramirez from the Sporting Tribune. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, anytime you guys need me, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, Mario.
Bye, Fernando.
See you guys later.
Thanks, Fernando.
So, you said a lot of things that I thought were interesting, and I want to go with Quentin Johnson first. Quentin Johnson hasn't performed the way we hoped he would. And I think, honestly, guys, it's outside of him getting hurt, it's our worst nightmare as far as what he is. He's a first-round pick that you needed him to produce, especially in a class where not only other wide receivers were taken, but so many were taken around him, around his pick. And you go and did the Chargers draft the right guy. Not saying he's a bust or it's over. He hasn't figured out, or the Chargers haven't figured out how to use him. But if I'm just off the top of my head, one of you guys can correct me right now when I throw a number out. Am I right when he has 44 total yards receiving through 4 games? I think it's 44 total.
You're right.
Okay.
On 6 catches.
And you go, dude, it's 4 games. 6 catches, 44 yards. That's not exactly the production you thought you were getting for what he was in this offense. And, maybe they're holding his hand. I hope that's the case. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But there is no Mike Williams. We all know that. Charger fans right now are nervous at 2-2. We were happy they were able to even out. Fernando started the interview by saying, guys, they should be 4-0. At the same time, it's the NFL. And he also said, guys, they could easily be 0-4. So where they're at right now and what's coming up with the Cowboys and the Chiefs, they got to get it together now. If this is a postseason team, they have to get it together now.
I saw that the 2 least productive receivers in last year's draft are Jackson Smith and Jigba and Quentin Johnson, the first 2 receivers that were taken. Quentin Johnson, like you said, has 6 catches on 44 yards. The thing that's really troubling is the 11 targets in 4 games. You can't be the number 3 receiver and only be targeted 3 times a game. He needs to be more involved in the offense. I think it goes on the coaching staff as well. I think Quentin Johnson needs to play better, but needs to get more opportunities at the same time. And right now, he's getting targeted 3 times a game. It's just not going to work. You have to get in some type of rhythm. I don't care if you're a running back, a quarterback, receiver. You need to have the ball thrown your way to get any sort of confidence.
Key word you just said there in the end too, confidence. Like as a rookie, you need confidence to play. You need confidence in every game you go into. And if you'd have told me that, I think before week 1, right, that him and Jackson Smith would have the least amount of production out of that receiver class, I would say, yeah, that, makes a little sense for both given the receiving core and the receiving rooms they're walking into. But at the same time, if you also would have told me, oh, and then Mike Williams is going to get hurt and that he's going to need to step up, I would expect his numbers to then be up. I would expect his production to then be up. And same thing for Jackson Smith. Look, we're in week 5, and, we talked about before the year how the bye was too early. This is, going to end up hurting the Chargers. And then now we're here in the bye, and it's like this is going to be the more perfect time that they need. We got our 3 best players on defense hurt, so that gives them an extra week to come back and get healthy. We got Eckler still coming back from an ankle injury. We got Justin Herbert that just he broke his freaking left finger, but still. And you have all that going in. You have Quentin Johnson who can go back, watch film, can kind of get better through the week, work on his time with Herbert. So it's frustrating, but also I think, Dave, the Chargers actually hit the bye week at the most perfect time. Still very early in the season, but I think it's perfect.
Well, for right now they did, right? We don't know what's coming down the line, but right now they needed it. I mean, if this was a basketball game, this is where you're calling your 20-second timeout, right? Trying to regroup real quick. This is what they needed. At the time, this is what they need. Now, we know it's a long season after that, and they have some tough games ahead. This Dallas Cowboy game, I think, guys, will give us a really good idea of what they are, meaning that this is a playoff team, right? How are you going to do in the postseason? And when you face teams, and they don't face the Cardinals this year, but when you face teams like the Cardinals or the Commanders or the Bears, no, that's not a shot. But it's one of those where you're supposed to beat those teams. The things that get you to the championships, are you the kind of caliber team that can beat playoff teams? And the Chiefs on the road, honestly, for me, is not a true test at this point of the season. It's still early in the season when they face the Chiefs. The product that the Chargers will have on the field against the Chiefs in KC isn't going to be the product they're going to be in the postseason. It's a tough win. Now down the line, if the Chiefs have home field advantage, and more than likely they will have to pull out a game against the Chiefs on the road if they want to go to a Super Bowl. What is this team made of? Where are they at? Justin Herbert, looking at his numbers right now, they aren't bad. They also aren't MVP numbers. Before the season began, I said this guy's an MVP candidate. He's my pick, but his numbers aren't bad. He's not on pace to throw for 5,000 yards. He's on pace to throw for about 30 touchdowns. Very good, but again, not top 2 quarterbacks in the league where I thought he was going to be.
Do you really care about the stats or the wins? Because
I think
I'd rather
the stats,
just get the wins.
Well, of course I care about the wins, but I think the stats equal, there's a blueprint for it, especially when this is a quarterback-driven league. And I'm not pointing anything. I'm not saying Justin Herbert could do any more because I don't think he could do any more. I think what I'm saying is this falls back to not having Eckler, not having Mike Williams, to Kellen Moore's offense not being even as dynamic as maybe I was expecting. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking I expected a little bit more. But what really scares me and why I brought this up, Josh, is the fact they were shut out in the second half against a Raider team that is one of the worst teams in the league. It just disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, it's very concerning. Even when the Chargers win the last 2 games, you walk away thinking, yeah, we won, but you're not completely happy. You just said it a second ago. The Chargers could be 4-0. They also could be 0-4, right? Kevin Murray and Asante Samuel Jr. don't get those interceptions. If you're going to be a top team in the league, you need to win convincingly every now and then. I understand that the NFL is very even. You can't really predict who's going to win each week. That's why it's so hard to bet. But you got to win some games convincingly. Look at the 49ers and the Cowboys and some of these top teams. They're blowing people out 49ers every week, sometimes every 2 to 3 weeks for these other teams. The Bills just beat the Dolphins by 28 points. If you're going to be a top team, let's blow some people out. Let's win these games convincingly. The Chargers stalling in the second half is a huge issue. Not being able to guard receivers is a huge issue. Michael Davis and J.C. Jackson can't guard anybody. So you can't tell me the Chargers are going to be a top team when they have these glaring issues staring them right in the face. Kellen Moore, maybe the expectations were a little too high, but when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert and you have Keenan Allen and you expect Austin Eckler to be out there, you expect a lot of points. But to give him a break, I mean, Austin Eckler getting hurt, Mike Williams getting hurt, maybe the expectations should be tampered down a little bit.
The interesting thing you said right there, because I think Staley said in a press conference when they talked about like the close games, he's like, well, it's the NFL. And it's not, it's not Alabama facing. I think UAB was literally his example. And while,
Poor
yes.
UAB.
Yeah, poor
Wild
UAB.
shot.
Yeah, why are they taking a shot at him? Like, come on. It's not a bad football program, right?
No.
Plus, they get paid when they do that. So, look, come on. No, but, and he says that, and while, yeah, there is some truth to it, that like any week, anything can happen. Cardinals beat the Cowboys, and we all didn't see that coming. But that being said, you just mentioned it, Josh. Like, the Bills really put it on teams. Bills really put it on the Dolphins. The Cowboys shut out the Giants. Shoot, last night the Seahawks beat the crap out of the Giants. Chargers haven't done that yet. And that's how you separate yourself from other teams in the league. That's how you separate yourself when they do power rankings every single week. Justin Herbert MVP, that's how you separate yourself. What did he do against the Chiefs defense? He threw for 4 touchdowns and won by 17. What did he do against the Broncos defense? That's all absolutely disaster right now. He threw for 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards. He had himself a day. What did he do against the Buffalo Bills when he played them? He led them on a drive to win the game late in the game. They needed 3 points. He gave them 7 instead. It's those little things that the Chargers fall short in right now that make them a good team and not a great team. It makes you go, all right, when we're preparing for them, yeah, we are nervous to play them, maybe, and there's some things you have to watch, but like there's no fear. There's no holy cow. There's none of that because right now you're just at a good level. You're not at the great level because at the great level you dominate. And right now the Chargers just do what they can to win. They don't dominate.
No, they don't. They don't dominate. So the interesting thing is, I know all of us, and I know the country is going to be watching Cowboys Niners. It's always a matchup that if you're a casual football fan, it's a fun game to watch. Here you have the Niners taking on a Cowboy team, and the Cowboys. I hate them. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. They haven't played anybody. Okay, they're 3-1, and they haven't played anybody. The Dallas Cowboys haven't done anything impressive. Like we talk about the level of play, how there's a speed in preseason, a speed regular season, a speed in the postseason that's completely different. The Cowboys are going to have a huge wake-up call on Sunday. If the Niners and Cowboys play this game close, because I think the Niners are that good of a team, that I'll be nervous. I'll be honest with you. I really want to see the Cowboys get destroyed, and you can say whatever you want. Well, now the Cowboys don't want to be embarrassed 2 weeks in a row. I want to see the Cowboys get destroyed to show that that team's not as strong as people are giving them credit for. But if the Cowboys play the Niners close, man, I'm going to be nervous about this game a little bit more so and saying, man, this Cowboy team's for real. And now you have 2 really tough tests back-to-back weeks for the Chargers. I think this is also a test, guys, for Brandon Staley. Andy Reid always has that reputation. You don't give Andy Reid a bye week. You don't want to face the Chiefs after a bye week because Andy Reid always wins. And let's see what Staley's made out of. You've had 2 weeks now to prepare for one team that's not focusing on you at all and not looking ahead to that schedule of we have the Chargers after the Niners. They're focusing on the Niners like you wouldn't believe because they think that's the NFC Championship matchup.
Well, when you look at the Chargers playing the Cowboys in a couple weeks, you look more at Brandon Staley or Kellen Moore. Hey, buddy, you were in that facility for the last few years. You got to help us out here. What's the defense doing? What would you see? What would you call here? I'm looking at Kellen Moore as, like you said, you get a whole another week to prepare. You were there for the last few years. This game, to me, is more on Kellen Moore even than Brandon Staley, and you never say that about a coordinator.
True. No, absolutely right. No, and if you're Kellen Moore, whatever's in your bag of tricks that we haven't seen and the Cowboys haven't seen, this is the time to do it. This is the game right here. You can say whatever you want. I'm saving my stuff for the playoffs. This is the game where you throw everything that you possibly have inside your brain that there's no way they can defend this or won't expect this. This is the game. This is a huge test for me as a fan on what Kellen Moore is really made out of.
Plus, too, like you have Kyle Shanahan, probably the best offensive mind that's really going to do his best to pick apart that defense. Take notes. Take notes. This is what he's doing. This is what he's doing to dominate them. This is what he's doing to make them look silly. Like, take notes on it. I was just on social media today, and they're talking about copycats, and they see Mike McDaniels, what he did against us week 1 with the motion and Tyreek running to the side and then sprinting up. And you saw the Rams do it. You saw Shanahan do it. And you see, like, okay, like this is working. Let's start copying other teams and seeing what they do that's successful. I can't wait for that. Let's write down everything they do. However they use McCaffrey, use it for Eckler. I mean, Buddy's going to be healthy, right? Like, I would just use this game going, dude, this is my Spark Notes, baby. I don't have to read the full exam. This is my Spark Notes right here from Kyle Shanahan. Let's dial it all up, get it cooking, and let's dominate the Cowboys. Because like you, Dave, I can't stand the Cowboys. And Dak Prescott freaking sucks.
when I go ahead, Josh.
No, I wanted to bring up something about the 49ers because I like what Mario said. Let's look at them. To me, Austin Eckler is the most comparable running back to Christian McCaffrey, a guy that can catch the ball and can run the ball. I think Christian McCaffrey right now is playing on a completely different level. He looks ridiculous. But you can take some things that the 49ers do and bring it into the Chargers offense. George Kittle was on a podcast. I think I brought this up a few weeks ago, but I found it incredibly interesting. The question asked to George Kittle was, what makes Kyle Shanahan such a great coach? What's something that he does that's unique? He goes, I'll tell you this. We'll do a formation. We'll go trips to the right, and we'll have McCaffrey line up to the left of the quarterback in shotgun. If the middle linebacker is one-on-one with Christian McCaffrey, he has a choice route. He can go inside, he can go outside. You're going to give him the ball because the linebacker can't guard him. If they don't have enough guys to the right of trips, all the quarterback has to do is, I'm going to go here. There's a mismatch. He makes it that simple on his quarterback to say, I'm going to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey here on a linebacker, or I'm going to go trips to the right on guys that we have an advantage on because they don't have enough players over there. Chargers could do the same thing with Austin Eckler, and I think they do a pretty good job of getting Austin Eckler the ball. But to me, the Chargers have such an advantage of having a running back that's really like a receiver. I mean, I would totally take a lot of the things that Kyle Shanahan does and incorporate it into the Chargers offense. I don't think Kellen Moore has done a bad job, but I thought he'd be a little bit more creative at this point.
More to be desired. Yeah.
Sorry,
Dave.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's funny when I think of the three best offensive minds, it's the three guys that Mario, I think you just mentioned a second ago, and they all work together, of course, in Washington. It's Kyle Shanahan, it's McVay, it's McDaniel. Those guys are the three best offensive minds right now in the NFL. And as Josh just broke it down for you, it's very simple to the point where when it's explained that way, it makes you feel like all three of us could play quarterback for the Niners, and you have all that talent. It used to be a year ago at this time, when you talked about the Niners offense, it was Deebo Samuel. You don't even hear about Deebo anymore. I mean, it is Christian McCaffrey. And every time I hear Christian McCaffrey's name, and I know someone's going to write on YouTube and tell me off as soon as I say this, it drives me crazy that the Chargers took Mike Williams over Christian McCaffrey. I always think in my mind going, didn't you guys watch him in college? He's unstoppable. And everyone who plays fantasy football knows he was the number one pick forever. He's so dangerous and so good. Of course, health with everybody is a problem. And Mike Williams has experienced health problems. But Christian McCaffrey is a different level than almost anyone else that goes out there at that position. And to throw back 10 years when they had like Danny Woodhead, who when he came to the Chargers, like, man, this guy's a lot better than I even thought he was with the Patriots. Christian McCaffrey's a whole nother level of what the mismatch that Danny Woodhead used to supply. So I was kind of surprised the Chargers went that route. I don't hate Christian McCaffrey. I'm just disappointed he's not in a Charger uniform.
Happy, though, that he's a Niner and not a Panther. Like, on the Panthers, it was just like, this just kind of sucks. Really? I'm happy he's a Niner.
I don't think we're ever going to see Christian McCaffrey in a Super Bowl as a Panther. I think there's a really good chance of seeing McCaffrey in a Super Bowl as a Niner.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like it. Like, let's see the players on the best teams, and that's like the Ohtani argument, I guess, too, if you want to do the cross sports. But I love watching him play. He's a fun player to watch. It's also just fun to watch the Niners offense because they just slowly take the will out of every defense. And you're like, wow, this is really depressing. That being said, if they want to throw the ball at Deebo Samuel more, that'd be kind of fun. He's on my fantasy team. That kind of hurt me this past week. So thanks, Shanahan. Up yours on that one. But hey, keep going and do what you need to do. Question for you guys. Would you be more nervous facing the Cowboys off a win or off a loss heading into week 6?
Ooh,
off a win. Off a win. Because if the Cowboys can go to San Francisco and beat the Niners, boy, that Cowboy team is for real. Then I'm 100% wrong in everything I just said on how I don't think the Cowboys are as strong as people say. But all of a sudden, I mean, honestly, the Cowboy wins are – look who they've beaten. I mean, they beat, the Giants – Jets, Patriots, lost to the Cardinals on the road. I mean, who have they faced? I wish the Chargers had that schedule. But if they were able to pull out a win against the Niners and give the Niners their first loss of the season on national TV, man, that would make me really nervous going, oh, my God, they might be facing the best team in the NFL.
It's funny. I would usually say the opposite of what he just said. I would want to play a team coming off of a win because you think they'd be riding high on the win. But I agree with Dave. The 49ers are the best team in the league. and then you probably put the Bills, and then you probably put maybe the Cowboys. I mean, but there's such a huge gap between.
What about the Eagles?
I don't think the Eagles have looked that great. I know their record's great, but I don't think they look that great. To me, though, the 49ers, there's such a big gap between them and whoever you want to put number 2 that I agree with Dave. If the Cowboys beat the 49ers, you got to be like, holy crap. Like, we have a huge test on our hands. And I already think it's going to be a huge test because the Cowboys defense is really good, but their offense has struggled big time. Big time. And I think the defense has completely carried their offense. I think it's going to be a great matchup with the Chargers because we have a strong offense. They have a strong defense. Our defense isn't very good, and their offense has struggled a lot.
Something's got to give. Yeah, like that's going to be a big thing for that game. It's like something's got to give. It's a big thing for that. I wonder, too, how healthy the Cowboys will be if that O-line's going to be a little bit healthier. They're really going to need it to be healthy for this week facing Nick Bosa and company. And with the way our pass rush is looking, to be honest with you, I'd say it's the strongest part of our defense right now, wouldn't you say? So, I mean, they need that to be very, very healthy for Dak Prescott, who very up and down type of QB, and that receiving core is nothing to be, nothing to overlook. I am with you guys. I think if this is, would you say this is like almost Kellen Moore's Super Bowl? Would you say that
for him?
Like,
yes.
This is it? Yeah.
As soon as that schedule came out, the only thing he was disappointed that game's not in Dallas. Guaranteed Kellen Moore wanted that game in Dallas. Otherwise, he was extremely happy to see the Cowboys were on the Chargers schedule. This is the game he circled. How could it not be? We'd all be doing the same thing if we were him. It's one thing to lose your job. It's one thing to lose your job at a national level with the number one team in sports.
With the owner that talks a lot.
That talks a lot. So the Chargers have the Cowboys and 49ers back-to-back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get much harder than that. This is the true big-time test for the Chargers. If you can split here, I'd be happy. Would you be happy with the split, Mario?
I would love a split. I would go crazy for a split. Because especially, too, if you lose both and you go to 2-4, that's really hard to get out of. I don't care the way your schedule plays out after that. It's really hard to get out of. Not to mention 2 very physical teams. Very physical teams. So getting out of that bruised, not broken, would be huge. So I love a good split. And even like 2 wins. Like, could you imagine if they have 2 wins? If they get 2 wins going 4-2, there's talks on the live sports network, sports channels that they might be the second best team in the AFC. I'm concerned if Bills keep dominating.
Yeah, they get 2 wins. I'm making reservations for Vegas. We're going.
Yeah. Well, remember last time? Wait, Josh, what happened last time you said that?
They asked the bet against the Jags.
We're supposed to walk. Weren't you supposed to walk somewhere?
No. I said no. That was last year. I said if the Falcons beat the Chargers, I'd walk back from Atlanta to Los Angeles.
And then in halftime, second quarter of Jacksonville, you said
remember there were no healthy receivers except for Josh Palmer.
Yeah.
Hey, there's something that's been kind of swept under the rug that's I think a huge deal is Corey Linsley is put on the IR for a heart condition. I meant to ask Fernando about this, but we ran out of time. I don't have an update on Corey Linsley. I hope he's all right, but that's a huge deal, especially your center, the captain of the offensive line. Do you guys have any type of update on Corey Linsley, and do you think it's a huge deal that he's put on the IR?
Well, it's huge. He's not available. I mean, of course, life and death situations, you think about the heart. So, I mean, I think the Chargers will probably keep a lot of that stuff private. I mean, you just know he's not available as a football player. That takes things to a whole different level than when we always question, or I do. I'm the jerk that questions, athletes on sprained ankles or busted fingers on why you aren't in the game. When it's a heart condition, it's a whole nother thing, because when it's heart and brain, then, you think, does he sit down with his family and decide, is this something I'm going to continue even if I'm cleared by the doctors? So, yeah, it sucks. It sucks for him. It sucks for the Chargers. Most importantly, for his health. You wish him all the best. That for me, looking at just from a football point of view, Josh, he's a big part of the team. The offensive lineman that I can look at all the time now that I like find myself staring at, please don't get hurt, is Rashawn Slater. Like, he's that valuable to this team that I literally find myself staring at the TV watching him. Like, he is so valuable. You cannot afford to lose this guy.
I think Rashawn Slater is the best offensive lineman on the Chargers. I don't think that's a hot take, but I think he's ridiculously good. I got to give kudos to the Chargers offensive line. We always bashed the Chargers offensive line in the past year. Phillip Rivers had some of the worst offensive lines ever. Yeah. This offensive line has been pretty damn good. Fingers crossed they stay healthy. I cannot give enough credit to Jamari Sawyer for playing guard and filling in and just being phenomenal. Shout out to him. I'm really happy with the way the offensive line has looked so far.
I'm with you. I love the way they looked, especially when they lose the leader. Like, I remember last year when Corey went out, and it was like, wow, it's noticeable. It's really noticeable he's not there. A lot of assignments missed, and they really hurt this Chargers team. This O-line's bounced back in a big way. Slayer's played great. Rashawn's played great. Like, it's coming together for that unit, and that's always good because that's the most important part of the offense, let's be honest, on that field is the O-line. And you mentioned Phillip. There's no one that made it more funny and more worse to get sacked than Phillip Rivers. Like, when he got sacked, it just looked bad because he couldn't really move. It's like when Peyton Manning got sacked too. It just looked ugly. You're like, just go down. Just stop doing this. You know, it was like when Big Ben ran. It's like, don't do that anymore. Just stay there in the pocket. That was so ugly and awful to watch it and burn my eyes. Let's just not have that happen anymore. I also just almost broke my computer by smacking it.
All right. We're about 45 minutes in. Mario, let's get a recap on how we did picking our games.
Oh, okay. So, gentlemen, first off, beautiful night for all of us on Monday Night Football. We all ended strong. So we all did that. Hate to say it, but I was right on the Chargers, and Dave, you're right on pretty much everything else.
That's crazy.
Dave, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You went 10-5 once again, sir.
10-5. I thought I was better than that. All right. I want to recount.
What did he get wrong?
You want to recount? What is this?
Because I swear on Sunday you told me I had 12 wins.
Yeah, I know I did. I miscounted. I miscounted on Sunday. Yeah, we're being honest.
Damn it. I was bragging about it. I wrote it in my diary. I was bragging about it later that night.
Well, hey, can we do a diary reel out at some point? That'd be cute.
I don't have a diary, dude. That's from a movie.
Josh, you went 7-8.
Ah, damn it.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I went 8-7. So that's how we
gotta start. We're early on. At one point, I'm going to give you more work here. I'm going to ask you to start doing our season stats. Where are we on the season? Kind of curious to know how we are as we play this thing out.
I could probably do it if you give me.
Yeah, it's all right. You don't have to do it right now. I'm just curious to know how we're doing on this whole thing, since gambling is now basically accepted in the NFL and you can talk about it, which is a lot of fun. So we come back on Thursday. Of course, we're going to break down more football for you. Chargers obviously don't play on Sunday, but we'll have a really good show for you. Also, we will make our picks again heading into the weekend. I'm excited by it. I do miss the fact that the Chargers aren't playing. At the same time, I know what's best for the Chargers. The other thing I'm going to throw at you guys, I'm going to bring up a topic Fernando threw at us. Austin Eckler, as far as what happens with Austin Eckler at the end of the season with the Chargers. I think it's time to really have a serious conversation on, is he that valuable to the team that even at his age, you offer him another deal like he wants, or do you look in another direction? I have some names off the top of my head that I'll throw at you on Thursday and say, who would you rather have, Austin Eckler or this guy? We'll play that game on Thursday as well. So, guys, we'll get on out of here. And then, of course, as Mario always says, you got to subscribe. We're on the YouTube channel to subscribe and leave a comment and a thumbs up and whatever you want to do. But we read all the comments and appreciate everybody being so active. Again, thank Odyssey for putting the show on Bolt City Podcast. But you can always find us right there on YouTube. Again, for Mario Heron, Josh Palet, I'm Dave Palet. We'll see you in a couple days.
Yeah, if you